Hey everybody, welcome back into our series here, a production of the American Association of Christian Counselors, about what makes competent and confident Christian counselors. Today, we're going to be unpacking something, really a principle that so many of us need to hear and so many of us need to continually identify and prioritize in our own personal lives. And it's the balance of our work and home lives, specifically incorporating professional boundaries. So many of us as people helpers struggle with this one because we always do everything in the name of love, right? And oftentimes we become yes men and yes women, where we're so quick to want to help. We're so quick to say yes and for the sake of ministry, right? That sometimes we see burnout and compassion fatigue happen because what was once your greatest ministry quickly became your greatest misery. And I think a lot of times we get life out of balance for a lot of reasons. A lot of it is just simply because, like I just mentioned, we're so quick to say yes because we're doing everything out of the name of love, and we care so much about other people. We care so much about helping those that are in need that we just want to say yes to everything. So sometimes it's as simple as learning how to say no to something good, to say yes to something greater, say yes to the best that God has to offer you. So really praying and seeking the Lord in discernment in those particular areas of your life. But today I want to talk about what John Townsend and Henry Cloud identified several years ago in their best-selling book, Boundaries, as the 3 reasons why so many of us struggle to implement healthy boundaries in our daily lives. The first one is because we're afraid of the loss of a relationship. Now, professionally speaking, a lot of us understand that termination is a very real thing that happens in the therapeutic relationship, that happens with our clients. We understand that a lot of times the sessions only go a certain amount of time. We can't walk alongside of somebody forever. Sometimes there are clients that you will spend a lot of time with, extended amounts of time with, years walking alongside of, and that's okay. We understand that. But oftentimes in our client therapeutic relationships, there will be moments where there will be conclusion, there will be termination in those relationships. And so we get that from a professional standpoint, but in our own personal lives, we struggle with boundaries because we're afraid of the loss of that relationship. The biggest fear that we have at the end of the day is abandonment. If I say no, if I stand up to this person, if I speak on my behalf, if I stand up for myself, they may, in a sense, walk away and they may not want anything to do with me anymore. That's a great and grave fear of a lot of ours. So that's the first reason why we struggle with boundaries, the loss of the relationship. The second one is being the recipient of somebody's anger. I don't know about you, but sometimes in counseling, I'm afraid to say no, or I'm afraid to set up professional boundaries because I'm afraid that it might make my clients angry. It might make them upset at me. And that's the last thing I want to do, especially when you kind of shy away from confrontation and when you struggle with maybe saying no, right? To be the recipient of somebody's anger, to have somebody kind of take their emotion out on me, that's the last thing I want to do. So the first one is the loss of the relationship, the fear of the loss of the relationship. The second one is the fear of being the recipient of somebody's anger. But the third one is where I think a lot of us struggle in life, especially as people helpers, and that is the feeling of guilt. You see, in counseling, a lot of us develop, whether we know it or not, really subconsciously, somewhat of a Messiah complex, where we feel as if we were to refer that client, if we were to say no to that client, that we would actually be doing that client a disservice. And so we overwork. We'll do whatever it takes. We will literally make our home life completely out of bounds and out of balance because we feel as if we have to do all of these things, as if we are the ones that produce change in their lives. And I just wanted to remind you of this today, my friend, that God is the only one that produces change, that it is not your job to produce change, that at the end of the day, God doesn't need us, but He is so appreciative of the work that we get to do in counseling, because I believe that God has no greater joy than using people such as you and me to walk alongside of the brokenhearted and to be conduits through which God channels His messages of hope, encouragement, and motivation to a dark and a hurting world. He is the one that produces change. We are just an obedient messenger and an obedient vessel. I think when we have that humility, which is an accurate understanding of who we are and our role in this life, our role as a counselor, our role as a professional, that is when we can begin to realize that it's okay to set healthy boundaries. It's okay to say no. And I love what John Townsend said to me in an interview once. He said, Zach, you can assess, in a sense, the health of the relationship by how that individual will respond when you say no. It's okay to say no. I'll end with a story. Early in me and Evelyn's marriage, I would come home at night and I was the person that struggled with professional boundaries. I would get phone calls from, potential clients and different people that were struggling with things. When you're a people helper, a lot of people reach out to you, especially when they're in time of need, when they're in crisis, when disaster strikes. And so I was getting phone calls left and right late at night. And it was supposed to be the time that I was prioritizing with my bride, with my wife, with my home. And I'll never forget, one night I took a phone call because I was so worried that, oh my goodness, this person never really calls me. Something bad might be happening. I need to answer. And I'm not saying don't answer those phone calls. I'm not saying when somebody is in crisis that you should just say, nope, be firm and rigid on those boundaries. That's not what I'm saying here. But it was a habitual pattern that I had developed. And I was really beginning to, in a sense, neglect my bride. Now, I remember Evelyn came up to me and she said, Zach, when is this gonna stop? Like, I just want your time. And I was thinking to myself, but babe, I'm home right at the certain time. I'm here the entire time, but I wasn't giving her the intentional time because my mind was elsewhere. And so I was out of balance. And I remember presenting this kind of story to Dr. Hawkins, who's the board chair for us here at the American Association of Christian Counselors. He's a dear mentor. He's like a spiritual grandfather of mine. And I remember he told me this story and this imagery, and this is what I want to leave you with today. He said, Zach, I had to learn this around your age when I was the same thing, trying to save the world, trying to help everybody, trying to save everybody. And I had that same Messiah complex maybe you've developed. He said, I realized this. When I came home every night, I parked outside for about 3 to 5 minutes. I spent time in prayer. I opened up my mailbox and I put all of the weight of the day, all of the hard sessions, all of the difficult conversations, all of the stress that I was carrying. And I pictured myself shoving it all in my mailbox, and then I closed it up. He said, then I pulled into my driveway, I went inside, and I felt relief because I felt like I had gotten all of that weight off of my chest and off of my shoulders, no more pressure, that I could actually go into my house, set healthy boundaries, and be fully engaged and present for the sake of my family and the sake of my personal life. And he said, and then every day it became a habit of mine to where balance became, and I started to view it as a good thing. My friend, today I want to remind you that healthy boundaries and your home work-life balance is necessary. And remember this, never neglect or forsake your Jerusalem to reach the Judeas and the Samarias and the uttermost parts of the earth. Remember that your family, that your marriage, and that your home, that is your greatest source of ministry. So begin incorporating maybe some of these imageries, some of these stories, and some of these principles in your life today. And my prayer is that not only would you see God in a whole new way, but that God would work in and throughout your life with this newfound sense of refreshment and rejuvenation as you continue to walk in the way in which God has prepared for you.